Welcome to Van Tate Sports Office, an in-depth look at the world of sports, featuring exclusive interviews with our KRQE News Sports Director, Van Tate, sponsored by Caesars Sportsbook at Route 66 Casino.
Sports Office talking a little bit of nostalgia when it comes to football, college football, and I'm talking about a guy who used to knock people over. If you wanted to stay in the way, that's on you. But if you knew what was good for you, you got out of the way. Rodney Ferguson, a Lobo running back from 2004 to 2008. Rodney, thank you for your time, man.
No, thank you for having me, man. It's been a long time coming, huh?
Oh yeah, man. It's been a minute, man. And speaking of which, get people caught up on what are you doing right now?
Currently right now I'm working at CV Logistics and pretty much just a manager of an account management team, kind of driving solutions and growing businesses for transportation, warehousing, e-commerce, just pretty much building fulfillment solutions for them to be able to ship their product, store their product, and just giving everybody a good customer experience from here on out.
It's a long way from football, man. You ever get the itch to coach or do any of that stuff?
I did a little bit with some kids, but didn't really get into it too much. I felt like I could still do it, man. And when you feel like you can still do it, it's a conflict, right? A lot of kids nowadays don't take it as serious as we used to take it. So I stayed away from it. It may be in my future, though. Maybe in my future.
Yeah, we were just talking about you recently about I think it was, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was a UNLV game. Some guy tried to come at you low and got knocked out in the end zone. Do you remember that? You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I think it was actually BYU or no,
Okay.
it was either BYU, no, it was Air Force actually. And he went low and he actually gave him a concussion because I hit him with my knee. So yeah, I do remember that vividly actually.
People remember you being the bruising back. I remember your first few carries as far as you being a freshman, your first few carries in a bowl game. I remember the San Francisco Bowl and Dontrell Moore gets injured. In comes Rodney Ferguson, and before you know it, Lobos are in the end zone.
Now I remember it, man. I was nervous at the same time, and I think Cole was the quarterback, and he actually
Yeah.
pitched it behind me, and I had to catch it with one hand and bring it in and kind of get into the end zone. But I do remember it. It was the start of a good career there at the University of New Mexico, and ever since then, I've been a Lobo and loved it ever since.
I don't think a lot of people realize that you got a couple of NFL opportunities. Let's go back to that first one, and that you probably thought you were locked and loaded for the Tennessee Titans because you had a good preseason, and the final cut day it didn't pan out. But what do you remember most about that experience?
Man, the experience was great, but what I remember the most was like when you get to that level, everybody's A1, everyone's good, everybody's just as fast, just as strong. So it was like you either gotta stand apart and do more, do extra, or you're not gonna make it, right? I do remember giving everything that I had to it, but given the backfield situation when I got there with Lindell White, Chris Johnson. They drafted They drafted Javon Ringer, and also had Chris Henry. It was a pretty stacked backfield, and I couldn't be mad at the decisions that were made, just because those were some pretty good veterans, and they taught me a little bit more while I was there. But 53 is 53.
Yeah, well, like for you to last until the last minute like that, I mean, they must have seen something.
Yeah, no, Coach Fisher was a great coach. We got to the last cuts, and he's like, "Hey, don't leave." He's like, "Stay around. We're gonna bring you back for the practice squad." And I was like, "All right, sounds good." So got the call, came back for practice squad, stayed for a couple of weeks, and then they were riddled with injuries, a lot of defensive injuries that year, corners, safeties, and they had to kind of alleviate that practice squad spot and add more defensive players to be ready for those injuries. So that's kind of how it panned out, man. It wasn't, like I said, it was supposed to happen obviously because I got another shot in Buffalo, but yeah, it was just situational and circumstances.
So you go to Buffalo, and the it's kind of stacked again, huh? Just like you're finding out that's how the NFL just operates, huh?
Yeah, no, it's a business. It's a business 100%. And when I went there, I was open-minded. I was like, hey, I'm gonna give it everything I got. Everything I did wrong in Tennessee, I'm gonna do right in Buffalo. And I went out there and I hit him in the mouth. And, I stayed a lot longer there than I did in Tennessee. But as you said, the backfield was pretty stacked there with Marshawn Lynch, Fred Jackson. They drafted CJ Spiller. The fullback was Corey McIntyre from Atlanta, so it was pretty stacked there as well. So I actually made it to probably like the fourth or fifth week of the regular season, and they had brought in another fullback, I think, and Corey got hurt that week. So it all panned out that way. But like I said, I gave it everything I had, so I had no regrets, and yeah, I'm here today and still loving the fact that that is my history because it drives me in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, going back to the experience in Buffalo and Tennessee, was it like college as far as you knocking people over and stuff like that? Did that translate? You know how, like when you're moving up from middle school to high school, you get a few reps and it works out. You just keep doing the same thing that you've been doing. Did it translate to the NFL?
Yeah, it definitely translated to the NFL, right? So one of my mentors at Tennessee was Ahmad Hall. He was a Marine, fullback for the Titans for 3, 4 years. He's like, you got it. He was like, you are strong. You can carry the ball. You can catch. He's like, you got it. And, he was like, just the circumstances in which, you fell into with the roster and the depth chart. Nothing you can do about that in the politics, right? But at the end of the day, they knew I was there. That Rocky Long mentality. They gonna feel us. We may not win, but they're gonna feel us, and they're gonna feel sore the next day and know they were in the battle. So, definitely took that to both sides, or both teams, and it was great, right? Like I remember probably the hardest hit I've ever probably taken was against Dallas in the preseason game with Tennessee. So um, they all were coming with the same speed and the same strength. So it was just mind over matter at that point.
Well, what was that like, man? It sounded like it was quite the jam, you know.
Oh, it was a collision that I'll never forget. I remember hitting the guy, and I think I went numb and I kept driving. He kept driving. I was like, whoa, if he felt what I felt, then yeah, we're playing now. We're playing now. So it was a good hit. Probably, like I said, it goes down in history and the hardest hit I've ever taken or given. But like I said, it was a great experience. I loved it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, we definitely saw you give some hard ones, man. As far as when you were done out of there, did you ever consider like maybe Canadian Football League or anything like that?
Man, I briefly thought about it, but at the end of the day, once you play at that level, you don't want to take a step down. You always want to take a
Yeah,
step up, right? So at that rate, it was like maybe it's time to hang up those cleats and kind of see what I can do to contribute to the world, and that's what I did. But yeah, I had the thought, but I'm like, no, once you go to the top tier, taking a step down
yeah.
is not what you want to do, right?
The conversation is just getting started. We have more on the other side. How hard was that transition, though, man, to leave football behind? I know that may have been like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably the most untalked about transition in football, right? Is when you go from playing high school, college, and then into the NFL. Like you're being told when to eat, when to go to practice, when to go to
Yeah,
class, when to show up for work, and then you don't have it anymore, and it's like, what do I do? So yeah, it was a pretty big transition for me. I was very lucky in the sense that I was able to land a job that was similar, right? Like I jumped into sales, and it's like the competitiveness with sales is
yeah,
probably the closest you can get to a sport. So transition into that to be the best on that piece, right? But yeah, no, it was a transition. I distinctly remember, you know, do I want to give up? Do I want to go and leave it behind? Do I want to continue to work out and
right.
practice and do the things that I want to do to try to get on another team? And it's just like jumping from state to state, not having a home to, call. It's kind of hard, right? So I went ahead and just, you said, prayed about it and said, hey, if it's not for me, it's not for me. I'll keep on moving. So
Hey, so what about Lobo football? Do you still keep up with it, and what do you think? Are you is it like when you were around here? What are your thoughts?
man, it's different. I've been back a couple of times with the different coaches from Loxley to Gons to God, who was before that? I can't remember who was before that, but I've been back a couple of times, and I see that they're trying to get that New Mexico culture back and get that, hard nosed playing style back. I haven't seen it yet, but I do keep up with the teams. It's been rough since our graduating class of the Travis Browns, the Marcus Smith, the Glover Quinns, the DeAndre Wrights, the things of those natures, right? So like,
Man, that sounds like
I
an
haven't
all-star
seen.
team, man.
It was. I think we had probably one of the better classes coming out of the University of New Mexico, right? But with that being said, I think they're on the up trajectory right now. After watching the Michigan game, I tried to get to it, but tickets were very scarce. But they did take a loss, but they still gave it everything they got, right? They played, and you could tell they weren't scared. They were there to play. They were there to bring it, and that's what we take pride in.
Well, and you bring up the culture that you guys had when Rocky was here, and I try to explain it to people. And how would you explain it? Because I always tell them that I actually did a story in the Mountain West, and I talked to different players and different coaches from each team what game that they hate the most, and they said New Mexico because they can't walk after that game. They said all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How would you explain what it was like when you were here and you guys and that tough, like we don't care who you are, we're going to put hands on you culture that Rocky Long had going here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has transformed my life in general, right? It's like waking up at 5 a.m. and on the field at 6 hitting, right? First thing in the morning, still got coal in your eyes, and you hitting somebody right in the mouth, right? So it takes a different person to be able to do that. And like I said, I haven't seen that smash mouth football in a long time from University of New Mexico, right? But Rocky just had us dialed in. Like I don't think we had any fear. No team that we played did we fear, and we knew that like we didn't have the best athletes. Yeah, we had some diamonds in the rough, right? But we didn't have like a team of Alabama caliber, right? But if we went to play Alabama, Alabama would know they played New Mexico because they would be sore the next day because we're gonna hit you. We're gonna hit you hard. We may the score may not actually give the true story because we could have whooped them up and down that field and it'd still be 21-0, but they felt it.
Stay with us. More conversation on the other side.
We'll get back to the episode in a moment. Monica Wicki here, host of New Mexico Living. I wanted to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Route 66 Casino and Caesars Sportsbook. If you love sports and like having a little action on the game, Caesars Sportsbook is your go-to destination. For rewards and more info, go to Route66Casino.com. Now back to the episode.
How do you feel about the overall state of football, though, and when you look at some of the NFL games, like me being on both sides of the ball at one point in my life, I look at some of the plays that are made and they flag them, like if you hit the quarterback hard or different things like that. Do you like some of the stuff that is happening? I know they're protecting the players, or do you think like, man, like I always joke and say I'm waiting for them to throw a flag on the quarterback, because the guy hurt the quarterback's feelings.
Yeah, no, as you said, right? I think it's in the interest of the players
Right.
being safe and taking care of them, right? But at the same time, back in the day, celebrating was a penalty. You got fined for it. You got penalized for it. 15 yards, 20 yards, excessive celebrations. So now they're able to do that, and they're kind of coached to do that for the piece of advertising and growing the community of football as far as the fans go. As far as protecting the players, I mean, the concussions are a big deal, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
some
agree
things
with you.
that are
They do have to
affecting
protect them.
a lot of people after the game is done and after they hang up their cleats and helmet, right? So I think it was a good thing, but I also that's not football, at the end of the day, hitting somebody, it's you got to bend, you got to break their will, right? And to do that, you got to put fear in them. And they've taken out a lot of the fear factor because you have to shy away a little bit. But I think also with the evolving player, right? You're having D linemen who are 6'6", 300 running 4.5,
Yeah.
and that's scary. That's a mid-sized sedan
That's
drive,
the ultimate
you know.
collision, man.
Yeah, exactly, right. You're definitely gonna be in the hospital if it goes any faster, right? So I understand it that the players are moving faster, the game is faster, the people are stronger. But coming from where we come from, a concussion, was nothing. We probably knocked ourselves out twice in the game, didn't say anything, and kept going. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the underlying issue is that we didn't say anything, and once you get out of football, it becomes a bigger problem. So I think it's in the best interest of the players, but it's not what I'm used to.
Yeah, that's what I was. You said exactly what I was. That's what I wanted to know your opinion of it, and you're right. It is in the best interest of the players. If you have the information and you still do it anyway, well, that's stupid. If you know it's going to lead to like brain injuries and stuff like that, that doesn't make sense to. We can all act macho and stuff like that, but if you can't even write your name when you get a certain age, or you don't know what time it is because your brain doesn't work right. There's nothing funny about that, and there's nothing. That's a real serious situation. So what about this NIL, man? Like, I mean, I'm sure that you look at those things and think like, man, hey, I could have used a few dollars, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like that changes the game, or it changed the game big, right? And that also plays a point and a part in the willingness and wanting of a player to play, right? We played because we had pride and we were there to, um, get our education, but also have pride in our school. Now it's
Right.
more me. I'm trying to get that money for me, right? Like some of these players that are high profile players are making more money than they make in their NFL contracts, right? So it becoming more of a money grab than an actual play to, hey, I'm playing for this team and I have pride in this team and we're going to go win and do that. It kind of deters away from true football, or at the college level, right? But I mean, nowadays you got to get paid for your time. You got to get paid for your work. If not, then you know you're wasting time and money, right? So I understand it. I would have loved it, but at the same time, like I said, it's the evolving game I think it just takes the heart out of the game. It's more of a business at that point.
Right. And you, with that said, I'm sure you can see a time when you're not going to get the true game. You're going to get these guys got X amount of dollars to do here. And like the one thing that'll keep the game true to some sense is that you can't measure a man's heart. And so there's a guy who's probably not going to be getting the same amount as this guy over here, but that guy is just a go-getter. So we have those things that could keep the game true is undetermining factors, stuff like that. Do you agree with that?
No, definitely, definitely. The measure of a man is his heart and how far he's willing to go to, reach his goals, right? If it be
Right.
money, if it be to win the game, but you can obviously see who's out there before passion and who's out there for money, right? At the end of the day, though, those two work hand in hand. When you get to the NFL, it kind of trains you to say, hey, I am my own business. I have to take care of my body. I have
Right.
to take care of my family. So at the end of the day, it kind of gears you up for that NFL life as well. But again, I think you don't get those plays where it's just like, you could just see that man's heart. Like he's hurting, but he's going through it and he's still wrecking the team, right? Like you don't get that because like, oh, I got to protect my body, or here goes my money, right? It's going to get flushed down
Right.
the toilet. So, yeah, that's what you kind of miss. But you also, like I said, it's building a better brand as far as teaching the younger players to be ready for that type of money and how to manage it and how to manage your brand.
We didn't talk that much about your New Mexico career, but 3 of those seasons you went over 1,000 yards, and how much did you feel like, hey, you know what, I did some good things there, because you all Mountain West, and you did some good stuff. You were first teamer, all conference a few times, and you were over 1,000 yards 3 different times. What do you say about your Lobo career?
I feel like, everybody says hindsight being 2020. If I could do it again now, the things that I know now would have made me a 10 times better player. But you know, I'm happy with my career there. I'm happy that, I'm still on some of the walls there for as far as records go, right? For me, it was all new. It was, hey, this is a game that I've found. Like, I didn't play in middle school. I played in high school, and I played defensive end my freshman year. And then I didn't run the ball till my sophomore year, right? So it's like, it was all new to me. I was learning it. I was really just trying to, better my craft. But what I did know is that I'm gonna break that person's will on the other side of the ball, right? So to be as lucky and as blessed as I was to eclipse that 1,000 yards 3 times, and then also have Dontrell in front of me, right? Who I had a good leader and someone who had done it in himself, right? And being in that room with them and understanding the game and slowing it down for me, I think it helped me out a ton to be in those record books and to have a pretty solid career there at the University of New Mexico.
All right, Rodney Ferguson, thank you so much for your time. He's Rodney Ferguson. Look out, he might be knocking over the TV in your living room coming out. No, I'm just teasing, Rodney. I just remember Rodney knocking people down all the time. We have much more Sports Office coming up next week. You have to stay tuned to find out who's our guest. Fernando Perez behind the controls. We'll see you next time.